Great to see so many people here. Paul Keating is my name, and I've been asked to chair this session and privileged to do so. It's great to see people from such a wide range of backgrounds, different places, different countries, and hopefully lots of different perspectives on this issue, which is enormously important in terms of rights to water. I'll begin maybe by asking you, when you would have logged on, you would have gotten access to a Menti code. And we're going to use Menti, if people are familiar with it. It's a mechanism for getting feedback from people during meetings. So if you were able to open up your Menti and have it on standby so that you can give us some feedback as we go along. And I think the first question you'll be asked in the Menti is about your own access to water. Feel free, while we're, I suppose, introducing the session, feel free to share some of your thoughts on that question, but we will try to use Menti as we go along. If there's any problems with you accessing it, you can do so on your phone, or you can do it on the laptop using the code that's at the top of the screen there. It would be great to get feedback from you as we progress. Okay, so what I'd like to start, Paul Keating is my name. I teach in the Technological University of the Shannon. I'm joining you here from my home in Tipperary in the south of Ireland. And my background, I'm a civil engineer originally, and worked a lot in water and sanitation with municipalities here in Ireland and with concern worldwide in East Africa. So since I came back, which is a long time ago, I've been working as a community and youth worker here in Ireland and as a trainer. So I suppose with a lot of those different hats on, Sally has asked me to chair the session here, and it's a privilege. It's a privilege to do so. If at any stage any of you have any difficulty either picking up on either the accent or if the technology lets us down, there's lots of people in the background of the call here who hopefully will be able to fix that. So please do just put it into chat or let us know that you have a problem, and we will do our best to fix it. What I'm going to do, the format for the session today is that we have 4 really good panelists from across the world who are going to share their insights on water and access to water. And we have a number of videos that have been made of the situation relating to water security and water rights here in Ireland and also in other parts of the world. And what we want to do is to show you those videos and get you to respond to what you see on Menti. So we'll do that for, we'll show you 2 videos and then 2 more videos. And then we'll have breakout sessions at the end, and it'll give you an opportunity to discuss with other people that are in the meeting here in smaller groups and then give feedback. So that's our plan, and hopefully it will work smoothly. But as we all know, technology can glitch on us at times. So we will improvise if we need to. Okay, so that's really the outline for the session. And I'd just like to draw to your attention as well that we have Hazel here as well, Hazel Hurley, who's a graphic harvester. So she's going to be sharing some of the proceedings. She's going to be sharing it graphically with us. So from time to time, I think we'll share our Hazel will share her screen and let us see how she's interpreting the session. Okay, so that's really where we're at. I just want to, and I'm sort of conscious that Alassane has joined us from Sierra Leone and had some difficulty getting the technology. Alassane, are you okay? Can you hear okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can. That is great. That's great. So we've Alhassan, Hadi, Emer, and Rachel. And what I might do is I might hand over to yourself, Alhassan. First of all, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work and where you are and what you're working at.
My name is Alhassan from Sierra West. I'm in the northern part of Sierra Leone. I transformation youth across other countries. We are seeking for change, and we are seeking for development. We are seeking by sharing our view by sitting in the round table and have things to do what we convey on our own.
Sorry, I'm really sorry for interrupting you. The reception isn't coming in that well. It might be the mic. So I'm just wondering, if you disconnected the mic, might it work better from the laptop mic? So if you want to try again, can you?
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, that is much better, I think. Yeah.
That is good. Of course. My name is Alhassan Kalon from Sierra Leone. I'm the co-founder of Young Voices of Africa. It's a group across the Africa continent seeking for the Africa Youth Goal and seeking for transformation. And as a co-founder, I'm very privileged to be living with the amputee people here in Sierra Leone, with the blind people, and also with the less privileged here, with whom I can share story with them across the Africa continent. And as a youth, we believe in transformation. What is lacking here across youth in Africa is transformation, leadership, and mentorship. So as a co-founder, it is good for us to establish the Africa Youth Goal, which I believe would unite us as a youth across Africa. So for now, I'm working on youth development and Africa Youth Goal.
Thank you very much, Alhassan. Hadi, might you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I hope you hear me okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for having me in this panel. My name is Hadi Toureguindo. I'm a water and environmental engineer based in Mali, Bamako. And I've worked for 5 years in the Malian water utility in a range of coordination, but also technical roles such as hydraulic modeling. I've realized over these years that I really love communicating to non-scientists about the importance of what I do in the sector. So over the last couple of years, I've organized many sessions in rural areas in Mali to raise awareness about water and environmental pollution. So during these sessions, I realized that community-based participatory research approaches, commonly called as citizen science, and giving space to traditional knowledge really makes a difference and a greater impact in projects. And this is what led me to launch Afro, which is a social enterprise in Mali, and for which I am co-founder, with the ambition to empower local communities in achieving ethnic peace, and of course by promoting citizen science in Mali. Thank you.
Thanks, Hadi. It's great, and it's great to have you here, and it's great to we'll hopefully hear more from you in the discussion. And Emer, might you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. My name is Emer Manning. I am the Youth and Climate Justice Development Officer in the National Youth Council of Ireland. And at the moment, I'm working on a climate justice project with a group of young people, two groups of young people from across different areas of Ireland. So with an urban young youth group in Dublin and with a rural youth group in County Cork and Kerry. And we are looking at the marine, and one of our groups as well is looking at the water quality of the marine environment around Ireland, how safe it is for people to use for leisure and for bathing. And we're also sneakily testing our drinking water as well to see the quality of that. So we should have the results back from that this week. But ultimately, the reason why we're doing that is because Ireland is going through a huge shift in our legislation when it comes to our marine area, and we want to make sure that climate justice is at the forefront of that. We're looking to protect up to 30% of our marine area, when at the moment we only have 1% of it protected. So that's a huge increase in protected area, but it's also a huge increase in areas where potentially people who rely on the ocean communities here, that are coastal communities, may not be able to fish in those areas, and that could have huge implications for their livelihoods. So that's the project that we're working on this year, and I'll be talking to you all a little bit more about water quality later on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a million, Emer. That's great. And Rachel.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Coffey, and I work on the Quality and Intercultural Programme with the National Youth Council of Ireland. I suppose I'm here today because I'm a member of the traveller community, and I've spent 8 to 10 years previously working with young traveller kids. I suppose access to water is really important to me, because we have young people today in Ireland that have no access to water, have no access to facilities for using water. So I hope today throughout the session that, you know, the video that we're going to show really kind of shows the impacts of the lack of water in Ireland, and also on our programme, the Quality and Intercultural. I think it's nearly embedded in both of our programmes, that it's because of injustice in the world. So I'm really excited to be here again this year and looking forward to the session.
That's great. Thanks, Rachel. And just maybe to explain, and you jump in, Rachel, if you want. I mean, travellers are an ethnic minority here in Ireland who are nomadic by culture, by heritage, and have suffered discrimination in terms of provision of accommodation and indeed water, and still do. So there's particular challenges that traveller families face in terms of accessing water. Okay, so we're going to take from there, and Rachel is going to jump in as well and help me if we need to. So co-chair, which is great. So what I'd love to do is offer you the opportunity to listen to 2 videos. There's 2 videos that the lads have uploaded. One is from Turkana. Charles is going to talk about water in Turkana, and he works with Concern Worldwide. And the other is from Spring Lane, and it's a video about the challenges the traveller community face here in Ireland in terms of accessing water. Yeah.
Sorry, Paul. Just to invite, would we invite people to reflect first of all about their own access to drinking water in the Menti, and maybe just take some comments on that.
Okay, that's grand. Okay, so if you want to log into the Menti and just share some comments about your own access or how you access drinking water yourself. Okay, so there's a range of different feedback coming through. Some people have access to water from taps, clean water from taps, quite a few. I'm not 100% sure where people are coming from in terms of the feedback, because I suppose people are coming from very different parts of the world. There's one borehole, and others have spring water, public water, purchasing water. So I suppose it's reasonable to say that the majority of people that are coming here or coming through on the conversation here, I suppose unsurprisingly, have access to clean water. Some have challenges in terms of the quality of the water, and purchasing water is also something that seems to be a few people's main option. Okay, that's really helpful. That's really useful. Okay, thanks, folks. That's really good to get a feeling in terms of where people are coming from and how people do access water. Okay, so what we might do is, if it's okay, we might turn to the videos. And while the videos are playing in the Menti, if you go to the next question in the Menti, it will give you the opportunity to give feedback, and feel free to give feedback in response to what you're hearing on the videos.
My name is Charles Eris, a senior officer at Livelihoods based in Turkana. I work with Concern Worldwide Kenya. I live in Turkana. My home area is a small village called Lotreri, and mostly affected by unsafe and water scarcity. My experience of water is disastrous, although currently I access clean water because I live in Lodwar town. I used to access salty water for all my youthful age till I developed kidney stones, and some more of my village mates also developed the same illness. In addition to this, I used to walk 20 kilometers return trip in search for clean and safe water. And sometimes I come back home late in the night or a day outside home. Many Turkana residents are currently not like me. A bigger percentage access unsafe water in open water sources used together with wildlife, domesticated animals, and human beings. People here used and currently use boil water, but some use hand-dug shallow wells, which are not safe because they are not treated. An average return walking distance in search for water in Turkana is about 11.6 kilometers by NDMA, National Drought Management Authority report this year, 2023. There's overuse of water infrastructure causing frequent breakage that are fueled by the current persistent drought. Women and children are mostly affected by inadequate water, as mothers require to walk long distances in search for water, as children keep on waiting without someone to take care of them.
Okay, that's the first video. There's a second video coming as well. And again, if you can, just post your responses in Menti.
There's no hating in the trailers and you have to go outside to go toilet.
We had no swings and nothing to play with. We only play on puddles.
When you want to wash your clothes, you have to wash them in a basin and then hang them up, but they never get dry with the cold.
It's all mud and all, and then you fall and cut ourselves all the time.
People ask why I'm dirty, but I'd be ashamed to say.
Sometimes the electric goes off, and then it's black.
We have no space.
This is hell.
It's like we're forgotten.
Okay. Thanks, Emer. Were people able to access the Menti to give feedback? Did it work? So I might just leave you a second if there's anything else you want to add to that. Okay, I suppose so. I suppose people are expressing anger at the situation that's faced by people in the global south. Also particularly the situation faced by children, both here in Ireland and internationally. I suppose people are reflecting on their own privilege. Again, it's not acceptable. Parallels between what's happening in Ireland within some communities and in Turkana are being highlighted. Somebody has highlighted the fact that this is a hidden issue and that there's an element of greed. Okay, so there's a lot of very strong, very powerful feedback. I'm just wondering, maybe even before we go on to the next videos, just could I ask maybe if there's any response that the panel would like to share with us, just in terms of having seen those 2 videos? Al-Hassan, you might need to turn off your video if you have it off. Yeah, that's great. But is there any response that anybody would like to? Rachel, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose for me, every time I kind of see videos globally or locally on water, it kind of always shocks me. There's a lot of empathy there, I think, in some of the comments. But I suppose again, it kind of goes back to like this historical like stuff across Ireland and Europe around policies, especially for ethnic minority groups. The Children's Ombudsman carried out that investigation with 12 young travellers 4 or 5 years ago, I think. There was a footbath put in the last year. So again, these young people, and it's in the middle of winter, still living in these situations today. And it's probably very similar on the global south, you know. So it kind of is always shocking to me that there's children all over the world still not able to access clean drinking water, or even have access to water, to the basic needs of like having a shower, being able to have a hot breakfast in the morning. So yeah, really stands out to me all the time when we see videos like this, that this is Ireland 2023.
Yeah, and I think, Rachel, the really important point is that it's not just water, it's sanitation. It's access to toilets, cleaning facilities, washing facilities, all of the things that go with having clean water. It's so much more than just water's important, but it's so much more than just water. Is there any other responses maybe from the panel, if that's okay?
Yeah, can I just respond? I really like the link that you made between water and sanitation, because to me personally, I think that the main water quality issues that we're having to deal with is the environmental pollution and how plastics are taking over our water bodies, and we're struggling to keep them clean. And I also like the reaction that, you know, it's not just the global south that is dealing with water quality issues. I mean, there are priorities. People are worried about like emerging contaminants in their waters in the global north. But then my reflection is that, you know, for us also using plastics in our daily lives, being global as people from the global south, then we have to work but also prevent these emerging contaminants through accessing our water. Again, even though our main priority is to get water to people, then we need to deeply reflect on if it is okay to provide polluted water to drinking people so that they can get it, because it depends on your standard from where you are in the world.
Thank you, Hadi, and that's great. And I mean, I think it is really important to broaden the discussion just simply but the complexity of water provision, sanitation, but also the environmental impacts. And Emer, I don't know, does that resonate with yourself and the work that you're doing?
It does, but I actually take a bit of a different perspective on this. I'm privileged enough to have the education to understand a lot of these issues, but for me it always comes back to solutions, and that's, to be honest, where I feel really helpless, because many of the solutions that we have out there, it's geographical based for some people, but it's hugely political when it comes to the solutions, and it's all about money. It's all about where we can divert money from governments, and it's making governments kind of realize and understand that those supports have to be put in place, but because it doesn't directly affect them, it's seen as a non-issue. And somebody in the Menti said that it's a hidden issue. It hugely is. For those people who are lucky enough to have access to drinking water, it's just not at the forefront of your mind as a thing to be concerned about. And it's one of those solutions that I always worry that it will never truly be solved. But I think the wonderful thing is that we've come here today and we can see that it's not just an issue in one community, it is a global issue. And Al-Hassan said in the comments in the chat that water it's a global issue. And because of that, if we all band together and make this a more visible problem, then there is hope out there that we can encourage governments across the world to put more resources into communities having clean access to water, both for drinking and for sanitation. So I hope that we can also focus on some of those solutions here today, even as difficult as it is to really get in touch with how broad of a scope those solutions are.
Thanks, Emer. Al Hassan, could I ask you a specific question, if that's okay? It's just taken from what Emer said. You know, what role do you think young people have in making this a political issue? Is it important, or to what extent do you think it's important that young people speak up? Thanks.
I think young people play a vital role in a society and for a development to manifest is when we involve the young people collectively. I think what is missing here is making youth development as a politics matters. For example, for we youth living in part of this country, especially Sierra Leone, politics has manifest in the development aspect. You see a lot of inequalities. So you can never get access to development, or they cannot see your view in aspect of development except you are affiliated with a political party. I think the division here among youth has been manifested in terms of politics. And the best way we can do that as a youth is to make community engagement. Politics in development, it can never work. Politics in affiliation to youth development, it can never work. So the only way we can work together is when we collaborate with other youths across the countries for us to get their own traditional view, the way they feel, and through our program we are making, I think that's the only place we can share our thought and experience in order to show we capacitate or add value in society by sharing stories of what we have been affected to other people. I think that has been our great concern here. That has made us united as a team, and that is what we are doing in order to shun at politics. I think politics is bad in all directions into development.
Thank you, Al Hassan. That's really, it's really helpful. I think what we might do, and I know there's a lot of people who would really like to input into this discussion, and please do in Menti, and we'll have an opportunity in the small groups to have a more intimate discussion in a few minutes. But we have two more videos that we were going to show. One was from Dorothy in Malawi, who works with the National Youth Network in Malawi, and again she's talking about water and the impact of water within Malawi. And we just have another visual of the situation here in Ireland regarding water quality and clean or boil water notices, which have become increasingly common across the country here in Ireland. So I'll hand over to you, Emer, I think, to share the video on the screen.
Hello, my name is Dorothy Gazombo Mwale, and I'm an environmentalist and a climate change activist from Malawi. I have access to clean drinking water. However, it does become a challenge whenever we have natural disasters happening, floods happening. This causes our water to become dirty, sometimes making it very prone to contaminants. Our water comes from freshwater bodies, and it is managed by a water board. So when these occurrences happen, it makes the water dirty, therefore it takes more time for them to manage the water in order to make it safe and clean again for drinking. This could take hours, it could take 15 hours, sometimes 24 hours, making us not be able to access to water for an entire day. Therefore, sometimes we have to look for other alternatives, such as buying bottled water. However, some places in my community have boreholes. They also have tanks where the water comes from underground. Therefore, these are some of the alternatives that we have when it comes to getting access to clean and safe drinking water. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. And there's a screenshot as well, but I would encourage you to open the Menti again and share some of your responses. these are just two notices that have appeared recently. The South Tipperary one, it's my own area here, but there's large areas of the county where you cannot drink the tap water without boiling it, and the same is true in a lot of places in the west of Ireland and in the Midlands as well. So increasingly, this has become a feature of access to water. So do go to Menti, and you can just add some of your comments to the poll that's there. Okay, so some of the issues coming through again is quite similar to the last, in that I suppose the fact that this is a global issue, that there is positivity around changes that can be made, that the impact, I suppose, one of the things that Dorothy was saying is how natural disasters, how climate change, how climate events affect water. That as humans we share a common need for water. That there's increasing vulnerability because of climate change, and water has become one of the factors that has become problematic in relation to climate change. Raising awareness, linking the broader environmental issues, climate change, and the universal challenges that climate change presents to us. The importance of water and our ability to value water. Water has recently been weaponized by groups to harm other people. So the politics of water, in terms of the geopolitical situation, and I think that's playing out as we speak in the Middle East, and access to water as a consequence of the conflict. People are being effectively are being affected directly. Yeah, and increasingly poor access to clean water here in Ireland is becoming a real issue of concern. Infrastructure is important in terms of access to clean water. Okay, so I think, and again, yeah, so people are really concerned about the quality of water for families. And there's a comment there from Cork about a cat becoming sick. Humans and animals are both vulnerable to both water shortages and illness as a result of poor quality water. The environment, we've seen it here in Ireland over the last number of years, and I mean it's played out over decades, how our water courses, rivers, lakes have become contaminated by pollution, agriculture, a lot of it, and it becomes a cycle of contamination. The water, it's very, once a water body like a lake becomes contaminated, it's very difficult to clean it, and it affects water, bathing, the environment, the whole lot. That global leadership is needed in order to address this as an issue. Okay, so I suppose one of the things that is emerging from me very strongly is that water is a unifying challenge. It's a challenge in the global north, it's a challenge in the global south, it's a challenge to people, it's a challenge to the environment. The consequences are catastrophic potentially for people. It's a political issue. It's being used and weaponized in terms of conflict and within countries and between countries. It's an issue around infrastructure, access to resources, and funding. We have a couple of minutes before we move on, and again, I'd sort of open it to the panel or to the floor or to anybody who might want to, I suppose, respond to some of the things that's emerged. We will break into smaller discussion groups, but I suppose before we do, if there's anything anybody would like to share, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll take feedback from anybody. If you want to put your hand up, Emer, yeah.
I just wanted to flag something that was said in the Mentimeter when someone said that there are certain groups that are purposefully restricting access to water, basically as punishment. And I read something it was this week, I think it was 5 or 6 days ago, there was an election in the US where they were changing local government, and something about water came out that just absolutely horrified me. And it was that in New Orleans, particularly in predominantly Black neighborhoods, they have always had long-standing issues with boil water notices. And a new governor-elect has started in New Orleans and has now started tying access to clean drinking water, which is a human right, to women's rights, and has basically said that if the new anti-abortion legislation isn't enforced in those neighborhoods, he will block funding access to them to repair their water infrastructure. So I just wanted to highlight now the weaponizing of access to water is becoming a real major issue, particularly when we're seeing more of a rise in governments from the far right. So when I mentioned earlier that it's a political issue, it's now becoming politicized in a way that we've never seen before. So I just wanted to, when we were looking at the boil water notices, I just wanted to highlight that there are some communities where it's not accidental, where it was caused by climate change. It's not a flood that caused it. It is actually people that are restricting access to clean water in certain cases. So we're coming at this from multiple methods. There has to be a lot of different solutions to this issue. Thanks.
Great. Absolutely, Emer. I think you're absolutely right. I think the other issue that, Hazel, great. This is just some, Hazel is just sharing her screen in terms of some of the graphic harvesting of the material. But I think absolutely the politics. I think also the issue of poverty as well and water is enormously important globally, but here in Ireland as well. I think people's ability to access water, I would say universally, but also in rural areas, is dependent on their ability to pay and their ability to access public services. And I think there's been a huge public response or backlash against the payment for water, but in a lot of rural areas where people don't have access to public water services, they still have to pay, and oftentimes don't get their water tested for fear it's shown up as being contaminated, and they won't be able to afford to remedy that. So there are a lot of issues around access and poverty as well. I'm sort of conscious if there's not any more response to those two videos, I think it would be really good use of our time to break into smaller groups, if that's okay. And I think it's either Emer or Sally has that set up. So when we do break into groups, there's a number of sort of issues that we wanted to for you to discuss. One was in the smaller groups to talk about either water security as an issue and what contributes to water security in terms of the climate, in terms of, okay, it's up there, but climate, the environment, natural disasters, climate change, and I suppose security in terms of public ownership of water or private ownership of water, which is an issue around our ability to access water. So you can look at that as an issue as a group. The other thing we were hoping that you would look at, and you can pick one of the two of these once you get into your groups, is the right to water. So what does it mean for us to say that people have a right to clean water, and I would add to that sanitation as well. What are the consequences? Why is it important maybe that we look at water as a human right? And what is the I suppose the consequences of being denied right to water? Who is denied, and what are the consequences of being denied access to clean water and sanitation? So they're the two issues that we would really appreciate if you were in a position to discuss in your groups, and you'll be able to give feedback on Menti as well in terms of what emerges from your discussion. But we would really like, if before you finish your group discussion, that you would look at what action you feel as individuals or collectively we can take. So what should we as individuals, and what should we collectively be doing to address either water security or the right to water and sanitation?
Okay, so we're good to go now.
Okay, that's grand. So people will be randomly allocated, so you'll just find yourselves in a group with a few other people. That's great. Okay.
Campaign around food, and there was lots of avocados, and it was very successful actually.
And also, like, it's a water gun, and that's such a childhood, like, it's such a, you know, strong memory of summertime. We're having fun, spraying each other with water, and to turn something so fun and innocent into the topic of weaponization. I don't know, there's I can't exactly word it, but there's something there. Sorry.
I think then there's something, Hazel, even with the way that you drew it, that it's a water bottle. It's that whole thing of, like, microplastics break down and they can pollute. So there's multiple ways that water can be weaponized depending on how we use our own instincts. Like, if we use single-use plastics, that's a way of us weaponizing different elements of the water as well, I think.
Yeah, very good.
It's great. I think great images allow you to interpret them in different ways, and I mean, I think it's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Well done. I'm not sure now. I think we have everybody back in, Sally, do we? I think pretty much.
Great. So we'll stop sharing the screen, and we'll share the Menti Harvest. There was, unfortunately, I think there was an issue with that screen where you couldn't put multiple submissions. But Paul, we might invite a wider conversation after we look at a few of the comments.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry to present.
Okay, so and again, as Sally said, maybe this doesn't sort of fully reflect the depth and the breadth of the discussion that people would have had. But there's issues around visibility and transparency, and the need to bring this issue to the fore in terms of public discourse, public discussion. Young people need to be made aware at a national and at local level. It's a political issue. Rainwater harvesting as a way of reducing our dependency on treated water, or mains water. Water is a human right, being critically important, and responsibility on the global north to minimize harm. Again, politics and water is raised here, and to be conscious that there are many people who are not in this room, in this space, whose lives are affected by water, and we need to be conscious of how we advocate on behalf of their experience in this issue. That we should really be looking at engaging with this on a political level. Here in Ireland, we have elections coming up next year, both local and European elections. And there too, I suppose, political fora in which water and environmental issues take center stage. That we need to look at what are the issues, what are the factors that contribute to making clean water available. We need to look at those factors, and we need to look at policies and legislation to ensure that clean water and access to clean water is accessible. So really what would be great is if we could just get as much feedback as we can from the various different groups. Sally, was there 9 groups or 10 groups?
There were 9 groups.
There were 9 groups. And I know this is going to be very crude, but I'd really love if somebody from Group 1 might just share some of the discussion that you had. I know it may have been in Menti, but was there anything that any of you from Group 1 struck you about the discussion that you had, or any of the points that were raised? So could somebody from Group 1 maybe volunteer to say a few words?
It might be beneficial to call out the names, Sally, of the people who were in Group 1.
I have them here. So that was Aaron, April, Ardelaun, and Caitlin Green. Anyone from that group?
At the cost of putting anybody individually under pressure, would there be anybody from that group that might share? Or maybe we can come back to Group 1. What about Group 2?
A reminder to Group 2, their group is Aidan, Alicia, Christina, and Hannah.
So if anybody would like to say anything.
We're all kind of waiting on each other to go first. I'll jump in really quickly we actually had a really, really interesting conversation in our group, and we kind of shared examples of issues in terms of access to water from South Africa, from Germany. And lastly, I suppose the last kind of point that we talked about was the hypocrisy at times when, for example, we see data centers requiring access to billions of litres of water. Yet we're seeing videos telling us today of the real structural issue for so many communities around this world facing access to sanitation and to water. So we do think there's positive hope for change. We've seen that with a movement in Ireland some years ago in terms of water, and we think that's possible again. But we had a really, really good conversation. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Aidan. That's great. That's great.
I will jump in because I remember some things from our group. So we discussed a lot actually about the water privatization. And after the conversation, when I was coming back, I remember that actually there is, since 2020, water is traded on Wall Street. So it's traded like oil, like a commodity. And I think it's important to highlight that something as necessary and basic is already there on Wall Street. Yeah, that's it.
That's great. Thanks, Christina. We can move through the groups. If anybody from Group 3 might have something to share in relation to your own input.
A reminder to Group 3 are Alex, Diandra, and Gillian.
I don't
Yeah,
mind.
we talked.
Oh, you go first.
No, I was just saying that we were talking about the impacts that the recent sort of boil water notices are having on rural communities in Ireland. Black water kind of coming up in toilets and stuff. I just kind of shared stories of my grandparents, how they weren't informed of boil water notices in a very rural part of Monaghan. And then we just kind of talked about how we could fix that. So maybe Gillian wants to. She might have more notes written down on that one than me.
Yeah, we were just talking that there has to be some like simpler ways to manage our own water and maybe link it back to that sense of community and that sense of like the land that we are on. My dad lives out the country in Galway, and there are wells everywhere, but none of them are functioning. And I always wondered why that would be. We thought about the fact there's natural springs all over Ireland that could be our own resources. Why aren't we using water towers? Why does it taste different in different places? And what is the quantity or the quality of the water and the minerals that we're getting and the effect on people's health?
That's great. Thanks, Julian. That's great. And I think it is really, I think the situation in rural areas, particularly when you're faced with by water notices, and then you see the abundance of water and potential sources of water that are out there, but people just don't seem to have access to them. That's great. What about group 4, Niamh? I don't know if you have the names.
Group 4 was Emer, Hadi, Joe, John, and Sinead Morgan.
Yeah, so I opened with asking which issue do we want to reflect on, water security or the right to water, but we agreed that they are so intrinsically linked that we can't separate them, that we kind of wanted to just assess both. We did that through talking a lot about our own relationship with water. Like when was the first time that we realized that there were water issues, or that we were privileged when it came to our own water. And it was interesting. There were like the campaigns when some people were children about turning off the tap when you brush your teeth to conserve water. For other people, the government would just shut off water in their neighborhood when they were younger, but other neighborhoods would have water. And they were thinking, did they shut off water in our neighborhood on purpose because that neighborhood is more of a town and needed it more? So there were just some kind of thoughts going on in the back. But then when it came to actions, most of the actions were typed into Menti. So if any of the group 4 wants to come in and talk about them, please do. But one that was mentioned was that certain habits that humans have gotten into do increase pollution, especially when it comes to plastics pollution and things like that. So it's trying to get into an education cycle with young people to show good habits, or not even to show alternatives, to just bring young people up with good habits so that they are protecting waterways for everyone from a young age the whole way up. But if anybody wants to come in and talk about what they put into Menti, please feel free to do that.
That's great. Thanks, Emer. Thanks, group 4. And we will maybe take a look back at Menti, a quick look back at Menti just before we finish. But just to get through to group 5, if that's okay.
Group 5 was Katie, Calvin, Lavina, and Mary.
Can I just say now, I know we didn't speak about it in the group, but just I have a group of young people in class, and we're just talking about how we're linking it back to like the fashion industry, and how like it's this big secret in the fashion industry that no one it's like, you know, we don't know about it. So we looked it up, and what was it, guys? 20,000 gallons to make an outfit. And so think of the amount of water that's been used. We also found out that it was 13 years worth of drinking water to make an outfit. So that's just from my group.
Okay. That's really, it's frightening, but it's fantastic. Is your group with you there, Lavina?
Yeah, they are.
Could you throw the camera around?
There, guys.
Well, fair play. Well done. It's great to have you, and it's great to have your input. That's really, really, really
just fantastic. Trying to bring it back to what's relatable to the group that they would know.
Absolutely. No, that's really helpful. It's great. Group 6 then?
Group 6 was Katie, the Calvin, I think, from Mad Youth Theatre. Somebody who's under Techno Pop 4, which I can't guess who that might be, and Val.
That's Alison.
Oh, Alison came back in on that. Okay, great. So Alison and Val. So anyone from that group. Yeah, go ahead, Alison.
Yeah, for a local community who are using local dog well water and swamp water, what is very important is education to water sanitation. I think that has been the major problem. People see sickness as normal, fail to realize that we get sickness through from contaminated water. I think if we build the education in sense to capacitate local people on how to use their own local dog well water and also swamp water, I think that can help to mitigate the problem. And that can be done through by education and try to identify prompt community or environment who are facing such problem.
That's great. Thank you, Alison. That's excellent. Great. Will we move to group 7, so?
Oh, me and 2 people from Kerry Further Education College were in group 7, and both of them had to go to their class. They're both lecturing on the youth work course there in Kerry. And in terms of kind of a brief overview, we talked a lot about youth action, and inspired by Alassane quote around youth development being a political issue. And they informed me that they're having a Green Party candidate coming in to visit their groups, and that they would be bringing water to the attention of that candidate. And but one of the strong ideas that came through was that they weren't just going to be talking about their own access to water in their own homes or in their own communities, but also in other communities, both in Ireland, like the traveller community, and also other places around Ireland who are suffering from quality issues around their water, and then also global issues and global access to water. And that idea of that if you're in a space where the voice is not present and you are in a conversation, that you can bring in and advocate on behalf of people who aren't in this space, albeit the kind of preferences that people are platformed and empowered to share their own voices. But in the case where that's absent, to kind of that collective action of communicating and advocating for people that you are not in the conversation or not in the room. So then we also just popped a video in the chat there around Abuela Grillo, which is about the privatization of water in Bolivia. It's like a cartoon video that people could use as a tool with other groups. So I'll reshare it in the chat. But they're planning on using with their groups to kind of bring up this conversation with their youth workers, youth work students, and also students such as like sustainability and natural heritage as well was a group that came up that they'd like to share with. So that was Group 7. Group 8 is Miriam, Rachel, and Shannon. If anyone would like to share from that.
And just to remind you, sorry, that Menti is open in the background. As just Sally put a comment there on chat. So yeah, group 8.
Yeah, so in our chat we were kind of exploring the idea of that the government go on that we all have the right to water and that we all have access to water, but people in reality living with it don't have the access to water, but the government go on that we all have access to water, but really there's people out there that are struggling that can't get access to water, or their pipes aren't working, but there's not enough being done about it. It should be really broadcast enough. It should be a massive concern, especially when we had that bad storm. Electricity was out, water stopped, which was, a big concern. And then in a way, when you're talking to young people, I suppose it'd be important to have an open discussion, kind of bringing that awareness to the water security. What is it? How can we make things better? What could we do as a group to fix it? So I think really going down to a young person's level and kind of giving them that open space to give what their idea is, I think is important.
It's great, Shannon. Thanks a million. And you're right, that is, why we're all here really is hopefully to advocate and to support young people in having a voice, having an opportunity to input into this issue. The final group is Group 9, and I know who was in it because I was in it myself, but TJ, Sinead and Zoe were there. I prefer if maybe one of the other group members. TJ, I can see you smiling there. I'm going to put you on the spot.
That's all right. Yeah, we were looking at the right of access to water. It's not that we agreed it, it's just that that's the way the conversation instantly switched to. Some of the last words mentioned just before the Zoom closed the room where things only seem to be getting worse. Like we were thinking more the local cases, like we heard on the video, kidney stones and examples like that. We were talking about permanent kidney damage from water that isn't clean here. I suppose other parts of the conversation touched on the role that young people have as agents of change themselves. A reminder to ourselves that, we were just reflecting on some other campaigns where, when we actually think of the role young people play in especially leading conversations around social justice issues, that, really effective. An example even from One World Week around 2000 was young people campaigning fifes for a fair trade banana because there wasn't one on the shelves. And I think there was anger. It wasn't an angry place or room, but there was anger and emotion and disbelief, just that this right of water just isn't available for around the world.
Great. Thanks very much, TJ. And I think all the inputs have really shown the depth of consideration, of concern, of passion, of anger underlying a sort of a desire to act, you know, and I think it's a fantastic reflection on the group that have assembled here, and it's refreshing to hear. And we have, I mean, I'm not sure, Hazel, if you want to go through the various different, sorry, Kelvin, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I just wanted to make something very also, something maybe we can touch on, because from our group, one thing that for myself, I raised up was the fact that there is also difference between talking about access to water and access to clean water. So there are some environments or some communities that have that access, like, and we live in a world where water is abundant, but getting that access to that clean water has other factors that plays within it. When we were also looking at the video, what struck me in so many cases was the kidney stone that was mentioned, and also people have to walk in order to get water, not just only on the global south, but also in the global north. So when we talk about water, I think we should not only look at the water in itself or getting it in itself, but how other factors or other things like fundings that needs to be done in other areas to actually get people more closer to getting water, or maybe providing, because in some countries the problem is the economy. So if the economy is not booming, then they will not be able to do things properly in order to actually gain clean water or access to clean water. So I think sometimes we should not only look at the wound or the cut, we should look at what caused the cut, to happen. So we should look at also other factors that plays in it, in order to actually gain water or to have clean access to clean water. That is something I just wanted to add upon, because sometimes we don't really talk about the other layers that cause the problem.
I think, Kelvin, that's really enormously important, and I think we do need to act with an analysis, with an understanding of the causes. So I think it's almost a very good point on which to leave things. But before we do, would it be okay if we just had a couple of, if I just asked a couple of people to input their impressions? Sally, very quickly, could you just say, is there anything left unsaid or anything that you'd like to add before we finish?
Just maybe from the panel, it's been fantastic having the panelists here today.
Yep.
I think, Hattie, are you still with us? And maybe just a short comment from the panel members, and just to say it really supports the work if you can give your evaluation, your feedback in the Menti. It's quite short, but your words are really important to us, and we really appreciate you engaging with it. And to say thanks to Hazel so much for her beautiful work, her beautiful political work, which makes this conversation accessible at a whole other level.
Hattie, are you still there? If you have any reaction, I think to the overall event. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned a lot, and also feel quite responsible. Responsibility is a term that I've been thinking about all along. But now that I know, then I need to convey the message. And I think initiatives like this are really inspiring for me, especially like the harvesting part of just translating information into simple images that really have impact. So if there's anything that I would take from this session is how to make really cool video images like this from thoughts from the audience.
Thanks very much, Hattie. And I mean, on behalf of everybody, I really do appreciate, or we all do appreciate your input and your presence here today. It's fantastic. Alhassan, I mean, do you want to close? I'm conscious of the video. Yeah, brilliant.
I think, yeah, it's very impressive and educative. I think for youth of we kind here in Sierra Leone, I think it is very good for us to take the message of education to access to water and sanitation. I think but the major factor who plays this role again is the school-going peoples, those in the university. I think they have a great role to play in their local community, the youth across, those who are playing football. I think sensitization with youth across, I think very important for us to take the message that we can only maintain or get access to water by taking care of our environment and by taking care of our local dog well and also swamp water by see how best we can able to sanitize it in our own local way. I think that would be very much impressive. I learned a lot from different people based on their own perspective. And also it is good again for me to share the same experience with other people across the world, especially from Ireland. I think we share the same story. It was so impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Alassane. Absolutely. And again, really appreciate it. And I'm sorry the technology hasn't worked, but I think it's been really valuable having you here and sharing your perspectives with us. Rachel, did you want to maybe say a couple of words before we finish?
Yeah. Just want to say thanks first for being here today. The global youth work means a lot to me because again, just flagging what everybody else said, the issues here in Ireland is a global issue. And it's always nice to share the platform with people that wants to kind of work the same agenda as kind of moving forward for all of our young people. And just to kind of flag what Kelvin said, we need to be looking at the bigger issues around water, it's not just around access, it's who has the power to give access to that water. And for me, it was really good just to bring that awareness around the structural discrimination and racism that prevents access to hot water for young people in Ireland today. So well done to everybody and thanks a million for having me.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks a million. And Emer?
Yeah, I want to echo what everybody else said and then also just say that the way that we have come together today in a global sense, there are people from all over the world in this room today. We need to come together globally on a larger scale to really push for the solutions, to push governments to understand that access to safe and clean drinking water is a fundamental human right. And I think that it can be done. We have a lot of passionate people in this very room. We have a lot of passionate people across the globe. So thank you so much to Sally and for other members of my team as well for hosting this session. It's been so valuable. And thank you to everybody here who was brave enough to share their voices as well today.
Thanks, Emer. And I'm going to be really cheeky right at the end. And if it's okay, I see Mary Cunningham is here. Mary, might you be able to say just a word in response? Because obviously as CEO of National Youth Council, this is really sort of an important event for you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul, and thank you for inviting me to do it. I wasn't sure whether it was appropriate or not, so I'm really delighted to have been here. I think some of the very striking things for me was, what Emer has said in terms of just how many people nationally as well as globally are denied that fundamental human right, and how a lot of the rest of us, I think, take it very much for granted that you turn on your tap. And obviously we saw people have multiple taps in their houses and it's clean, safe water that's coming from that. In terms of the emoji that I've picked for myself, was that one of anger, where where we're hearing about void notices and others and what's happening in terms of how water is being used as a weapon in the conflict in Gaza and other places, and yet are we mobilizing to do anything about it? So I'm taking that at a personal level, and the denial of access to clean water and the right to that, I think, is just so fundamental to people's life, health, their education, the whole issue about people having to travel. We've discussed that quite a bit in our group in terms of the amount of time that takes, and presumably the majority people who are doing that are children and women, children and young people and women. So I'm exceptionally proud of the MYCI team. They always step up to the plate and then exceed the expectations. So it's been a privilege to be part of this, and what a really exciting start to One World Week. So very well done to the MYCI team. Thank you to you, Paul, for chairing it so sensitively, and for the exceptional inputs that we've had, and how really lovely that through Lavina's input that we had direct input from young people, and that was into our group. So they were engaging very actively in our discussions, and obviously those conversations continued when they identified the link between water and fast fashion. So thanks very much. It's been a really inspiring hour and a bit. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Mary. And I think it's about time. It's time now that we'll just wrap up. And I just want to, on maybe Sally's behalf and MYCI's behalf, to thank Irish Aid for the support in the event. And I think funding is one thing, but I think what Irish Aid bring to youth work is a global perspective, and I think that's enormously important. That it allows us make those connections. Sally was suggesting, and I think it is a great idea, if we close off with the graphic harvesting. So just again, it just remains to thank everybody who actively and engaged, and everybody who attended the event here, and that there will be an opportunity to reconnect on these issues, and people who, Sally and the LAT team will be in touch. Okay, so thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.